Hello everyone, Trusted Gundam 13 here, and I have here some gameplay slash thoughts on the upcoming Star Wars Battlefronts being developed by EA, and it's the next entry in the Battlefront series, if you want to call it. And really, I've got a lot to say about Battlefront. It's possibly one of my favorite Star Wars games of all time, and probably one of my favorite games of all time. I've played it since I was a kid, and I've got a lot to say about it. So I hope you guys enjoy my commentary and mumbling. Before I go into saying my impressions and the good and bad of it, I'll just do an overall statement of things in the game and shit like that. So, first off, for the basic controls in Battlefront, you have both a first and third person view. And it's kind of like the first Battlefront games, or the first, the first Battlefront games that are made by, LucasArts. You had first person and third person. And you can do this by switching on the fly. Unlike the old ones where you had to go into the options menu to switch back and forth. And this one, now you can switch back. I mean, to me, it's just the third person. It has a lot more, I guess. You can look around your surroundings a lot more. You can see around corners without you getting out of cover and shit like that. And overall, I think it's more better spatial awareness wise for looking for enemies and shit like that. I mean, as you're seeing here in gameplay, I'm able to look around the cover to see if I'm getting shot from and where and who's shooting at me and shit like that. And overall, it's really not affecting how I'm shooting and shit like that. Because here's another thing I gotta say, which I'm glad that they were able to keep. The guns in Battlefront, they are very much like the original Battlefront games, like 1 and 2. In that they have basically near pinpoint accuracy. And some people are going to be like, oh, that's bad. And other people are going to say, oh, that's like not that great. Or, people are going to hamper on that fact that they, have, I guess, no recoil in a way, or they have no drop off or something, because basically they're laser guns, so they're not meant to have any of that shit. So to me, I think it's perfectly fine. Plus, it's kind of like classic Battlefront, because you can shoot across the map in the classic Battlefront games. So really, to me, I don't mind that all that much. So to me, the gun gameplay of Battlefront is very of the EA Battlefront, I guess Battlefront 2015, if you want to say. The new Battlefront sticks to the old originals pretty well, darn well, in my opinion. But among other things though that's like a big difference this time around is that there are no more classes now, unlike in the original Battlefronts where there are different classes for different things like sniping, being a basic infantry with an assault rifle, or being a person that's good against vehicles and shit like that. There's no more classes in this game. Instead, what you have is you have these things called, I don't know the names of them exactly. I believe they're called star cards. And what these are is that basically they're loadouts that you pick. Think of them a la perks in Call of Duty and stuff like that. And I know people are going, oh no, perks like that in Battlefront. And really, they're not too bad. What they do is basically they let you have, okay, I have a cooldown ability that lets me have a thermal detonator, which is a grenade in Star Wars terms. Or I'll have an ability that lets me have the jetpack. Or I'll have an ability that, let's see, what other ones do they have? I have an ability that lets me shoot out a bunch of grenades at once and shit like that. Different types of things like that. Kind of like the abilities that the classes from the previous Battlefronts had, And they're pretty nice for the most part. I like the customization of you being able to switch back and forth. I don't mind too much the classes are kind of gone. You know, I feel that if they did have the classes in this new Battlefront, then it'd feel too much like a Battlefield, which EA is also very well known for playing, or not playing, but developing. So yeah, I think the star cards, they're alright for the most part. There's also different types of star cards, I forgot to mention. There's star cards that require charges. And these star cards, what they are is that they're star cards that have a certain amount of uses. So for example, in the beta, there's 2 specific star cards. One of them is that you can turn your gun into an ion charged up gun. And what that does basically is that your gun deals damage to vehicles. It can deal damage to droids and shit like that. It deals extra damage to those types of things. Because if you're just shooting at it with your basic gun, you're not going to be dealing that much damage and shit to it. But if you shoot it with an ion charge gun, you're going to be dealing tons of damage to it. But it only works for a limited amount of time. Then eventually you have to find another charge for it somewhere on the battlefield. Or you can recharge it every time you die or some shit like that. And then there's another one where you can spawn out your own personal bubble shield, pretty much. And what ends up happening is you're basically invulnerable to all types of damage until that, you know, shield runs out of time or it runs out of energy. But the drawback to that, of course, is that you can't shoot. You can only like punch and jump and move and shit like that. But then again, they can't shoot at you, so I guess that's pretty good. But that's one type of star card. And then there's another type of star card. And this star card, these ones are limited. They're not limited to your loadouts per se. Instead, they're limited to pickups you find on the field. And there's something like kill streaks in a way. And I know more references to something like Call of Duty, but that's literally what they feel like. They kind of feel like kill streaks, where you find them and then all of a sudden they flash up saying, oh, this is available to you. You know how in Call of Duty you'll get like, oh, you can get in this helicopter, chopper gunner or whatever. Well, and here it'll be like, oh, hey, you can be in a TIE fighter for like, you know, until you die or some shit. Like, besides these star cards being, you know, Call of Duty-ish type kill streaks and things like that, in terms of vehicles. Again, some of these vehicles, they can be the typical ATSTs or whatever. If you don't know what those are the mini walkers and shit like that in Star Wars, or what some may call the chicken walkers. Some will be the massive big AT-ATs, the AT-ATs, you know, that people, you know, love and shit like that. The really, really big ones full of destruction and shit like that. And then other ones will be a bit more on the unique side. Some of these will be the heroes. Now, if you remember from Star Wars Battlefront 2, the original Star Wars Battlefront 2, what it was that hero characters, they would come out based off basically how well you would do. So the hero characters were pretty much essentially kill streaks in the original Battlefront games. And what it is that they made you the most overpowered OP being on the battlefield. And this time around, they're limited to just pickups. So anybody can basically become a hero in this game, which I like. Because unlike in the previous Battlefront, where it was based off how good you were, in this one, anyone can do it. So it's an equal and random chance in a way. And the heroes in this game, they do not feel overpowering. They look cool as shit, and they're awesome and everything, but they don't feel overpowered. The heroes from the original Battlefront felt really freaking overpowered, man. Like, holy shit. You could literally be a hero for an entire freaking match in the original Battlefront. And you could be slaughtering hundreds of dudes. In this one, you'll probably only kill like 5 or 10 guys before you get killed, or before your hero decides to say, oh, fuck this, I'm leaving, or some shit like that. And the heroes in this are Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker. Apparently there's going to be more heroes, I believe. I think there's going to be Boba Fett, maybe Han Solo. I'm not sure exactly. But yeah, the heroes in this game, you will get killed very quickly. You're like an instant attention grabber when you're a freaking hero. Because even then, like, if you're trying to, I don't know, sneak around and shit like that, the classic Star Wars theme will actually end up playing whenever you spawn as a hero, as a bit of a warning or a sign of relief for your side or for the enemy and shit like that. So it's like, oh crap, there's a hero around here, I better watch out for him, or some shit like that. And people will be like, oh whoa, it's Luke Skywalker, look at that, he's running against the enemy. Or other people will be like, oh shit, it's Luke Skywalker, freaking shoot the shit out of him, run the hell out of here. You know, so basically you're going to grab the attention of people from across the freaking map, and they will be shooting the shit out of you. And so you'll die pretty quick. And really, the map that you use the heroes on aren't exactly the best in the beta. So I'd imagine hero characters like Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker, they'd be a lot better in close quarter maps. But in this game mode, heroes are kinda not exactly the best things to use, in fact, to be honest. You're better off using things like the ATSD or the freaking AT-ATs. Now, the other type of vehicles you can use in this game are spaceships. Now, another controversy behind EA's Battlefront was that there was going to be no space combat. Now, that's kind of not exactly the case, in a way, I'd like to say. In that there's flight combat with fighters and shit like that, but it's limited to atmospheric combat. So you're going to be on the planets fighting. You're not going to be in space and shit like that. So, yeah, I don't know, really. I mean, as long as you get the ability and chance to fly spaceships and shit like that, you know, in a Star Wars game, which is common, you know, spaceships and Star Wars kind of go hand in hand. I mean, come on, how can you not have, you know, spaceships in a Star Wars game? Hell, in a Battlefront game, you know. So that would have been a massive negative if they didn't even have any flying vehicles. But I'm glad they at least included it in the EA's Battlefront. And if you think about it in a way, they only had vehicles in atmospheric combat. So people forget to, you know, think of that. So in a way, it's not too big of a deal because nobody really bitched about that in the first Battlefront. So I mean, as long as they have vehicles in Battlefront in some shape or form, I'm cool with it. And to me, I think the air combat in Battlefront, I think it can be really fun at times, and other times I think it can be really shitty. And I guess I'll go over that right now. And what it is that basically they're based off the pickup. So let's say you find I found an X-Wing pickup, or I found a TIE Fighter pickup. You instantly spawn in the X-Wing in the air and shit like that. And I'm not gonna lie, I think the air battles are pretty fun. A lot of people have been saying that in the beta that the air combat has been really shitty. I'm gonna be honest, I've had a lot of fun with aerial combat. And in a way, I think it actually replicates how the aerial combat of the original Battlefront was. I really do. And people say, oh, it's kind of really heavy. Oh, I don't really feel going really fast. Well, that's how it was in the original, I believe. Because to me, if I even remember playing multiplayer in the original Battlefront, and space combat in multiplayer, it really was not all that fast-paced and like, oh, I'm gonna go zooming through here, this and that. To me, they got the controls pretty spot on. You can boost really fast, you can slow down, you have secondary firing with missiles, you have, you have your basic lasers, and you'll have secondary ability here and there and shit like that. You can lock on and stuff like that, and overall it's really fun. I've had quite a few dogfights in the air, and some of them have ended horribly and some of them have ended really bad. But I've had a lot of fun. I mean, you've got the basic vehicles, you've got the X-Wing, like I mentioned, you got the Imperial TIE Fighter, and then later on in certain levels, you'll get the freaking A-Wing, you'll get the TIE Interceptors, and maybe later on in different modes, because there is supposed to be a Flight Squadron mode in the full game, which is in the beta, you'll get the, I don't know, maybe you'll get something like the B-Wing, even though that thing looks like a piece of shit, but I digress. I'm not going to mention that. So really, it felt really cool. And the A-Wings, obviously, they're the freaking fast dog fighters. They're really light and shit like that, but they're really good at taking down other fighters. And really, some of these dog fights can be really freaking awesome, man. Like, I've gotten intense, you know, into some of these. Like, I'm like, oh shit, I gotta do evasive maneuvers. Oh, I gotta activate my deflector shields right now. Oh, I gotta freaking, you know. And what's coolest about it is that you can switch back from first person to third person. Let me tell you, the first person, it looks so good when you're inside these fighters. Like, god damn, it looks sweet. Like, I remember when I got in my A-Wing fighter for the first time, and I was like, holy shit, it looks so cool on the inside. Even the TIE fighters look pretty cool, man. And to me, I think the TIE fighters, they've always kind of looked bland to me in a way, but man, even the TIE fighters look really cool in first person and third person and shit like that. And air combat, I really liked, but there is one negative to the air combat, and I have to say the negative to the air combat that I think it is that sometimes it just feels like if you're not fighting in a dogfight or whatever, and then your first thought would be to, okay, now I'm going to start hitting things in the ground. If there's not something like a vehicle or a turret for you to shoot at, you're not going to be hitting shit in your fighter. If you're going to be trying to shoot at guys in the freaking ground, you're not going to be able to see shit. You're not going to be able to do anything. Like, god damn. I've tried a lot to try and kill people, and every once in a while, I'll probably kill like one guy in a strafing one or shit like that. Because the problem is, and I don't know if that's because of graphic capabilities or if that's a bug, but if you're high above in the air, you can't see shit of where the guys are and things like that. And you have to get really close to the ground to see where they are. But guess what? By the time you're that close on the ground, you're probably about to crash. And I have seen so many people try to do strafing runs against enemies on the ground, and I have seen them crash. It is the funniest shit ever to see these people crash. And I'm just like, what's the point in trying to do strafing runs against these guys? I mean, really, it's just, I mean, in the original Battlefront, your secondary missiles, I guess you want to say, they had big radiuses of explosions, so they're your primary go-to weapons for attacking enemies on the ground. But in this one, they're only really for dogfighting, man. They're only for dogfights and, you know, taking down fighters. The missiles are not for taking down ground infantry. Like, I can't hit shit with the missiles, and you really just got to get lucky when you're doing strafing runs. And really, I would not even suggest doing strafing runs. I would instead try concentrating on an objective or doing, you know, doing combat against other fighters and shit like that. So that's why I think about the air combat. It plays really well to me. I really enjoyed it. Yeah, sometimes I've seen every once in a while people just circling back and forth amongst each other, trying to hit each other. But really, that's a kind of signs of you not being really good at dogfighting. If you're doing that, you should be trying to be doing evasive maneuvers, trying to be doing all kinds of crazy shit to trying to get the guy off of you, or trying to, you know, kill the guy that's behind you and shit like that. So yeah, that's my opinions on the fighting. To me, I think they're really good, but again, that's my opinion. Another thing you can do in the Star Wars Battlefront Beta is that with your loadouts, you can also choose different guns, again, a la kind of something like Call of Duty. And in the beta, there's only 4 different types of guns. There's the Republic Assault Rifle. Ugh, no, the Rebel Assault Rifle, and the Imperial Stormtrooper Carbine, the Standard Pistol. It's not really specified whether it's you know, Imperial or Rebel, so we just call it a pistol. It's just some pistol. And then literally a German machine gun. And I don't know what they're really thinking here. I mean, you just look at it and it looks like a German machine gun. Hell, it even fires like a German machine gun from freaking like Call of Duty or some shit like that. But I guess, again, they were using props from the movies and stuff like that. And one of the props was a German machine gun, or it looked like a German machine gun. So, you know, whatever. But you can choose any 4 of those guns and stuff like that into your loadouts and shit like that, along with the star cards. Of course, you have to unlock these guns and shit like that. by doing currency and stuff, and you level up, you buy things and stuff like that. Again, it's like a basic multiplayer shooter. You level up, you get some currency, you get points, and the currency in this game is called credits, by the way, which is the Star Wars money system. So that's kind of neat that they did that. But you level up, you gain experience, you get points up, and shit like that. You unlock more stuff, and also apparently there's going to be character customization in the game. That's another thing, is that there's going to be character customization, and in the beta, your characters are randomized, so their appearances are apparently randomized and shit like that. So you might all of a sudden be playing as a girl and you don't even notice it. You might be playing as a female stormtrooper and you'll never notice it until she screams and you're like, oh, she just died and she screamed, or he or she screamed like a girl. Oh, I guess I'm playing as a girl stormtrooper or whatever. But, oh, yeah. Another thing I forgot to mention about the guns is that, unlike in other first-person shooters where you have, a certain amount of ammo in a clip or whatever, in this game, it's based off of recharging and overheating. And what it is that you can fire off a certain amount of shots until you overheat a gun, basically. So let's say you fire off 20 rounds, then all of a sudden the gun goes into a state of overheating. So that's kind of basically like reloading in a way, but if you don't shoot after a while, it'll just recharge on its own. That's kind of like overheating. Again, if you've played other first-person shooters, I'm sure you've heard of the concept of overheating guns and shit like that. And some people might have a problem with that here and there, but to be honest, I don't have too much of a problem with it. I've played games here and there that deal with the overheating of guns and shit like that. Hell, I think the original Battlefront had some guns that dealt with overheating of guns and shit like that and recharging them and stuff like that. So, I'm down with it. In fact, there's a method where if you time your cooldowns correctly, you can basically skip the entire overheating process and shit like that, and you can continue firing if you get it correctly. So that's another thing with the gameplay that they've done, and even the original Battlefront dealt with ammo clips and stuff like that, but I feel that the way that they did it now, they've made it more Star Wars-y in a way, I guess. So I'm pretty cool with that way of, shooting, and it does make it a bit different from other things like Battlefield and Call of Duty and shit. Battlefront Conquest mode, which was a lot like, not Conquest, was it called Conquest? I'm not exactly sure, but the original Battlefront Conquest mode was a lot like the Battlefield Conquest mode, if I'm correct, if that's what it was called, where you would go around the field capturing command posts and shit like that. That is gone now. And instead, what you get are two modes in the multiplayer. You now get a mode called Drop Zone and Walker Assault. There's going to be more modes in the future, but those were the only two modes in the beta, Drop Pod and Walker Assault. And in Drop Pod, what it is that your team of 8 people, this is a max of 16 people in this game mode, your team of 8 people are charged with capturing different drop pods that spawn on the battlefield at random locations. And what it is, basically, okay, once you see a drop pod coming down, you're like, okay, I gotta go over there, I gotta run. And you gotta basically capture it and defend it and not let the other team, capture it and shit. So basically, it's King of the Hill in a way. But also, the twist here is that whenever your team captures a drop pod, you'll get special abilities, the special star cards that I mentioned, like the kill streaks and shit like that. You'll get stuff like, not vehicles, that's another thing I forgot to mention, is that not all the kill streak-ish star cards are vehicles. Some of them are special weapons, like a giant rocket launcher that can pretty much instant kill everything, or a grenade that causes a giant radius explosion, or landmines, or maybe even orbital strikes and blaster cannon and auto turrets and shit like that. And so basically in this drop pod mode, you constantly, and your team has to be running around for these drop pods and shit like that, going back and forth between ones. Like one time your team might be defending it really well, and then all of a sudden you get massacred and everyone gets killed, and then the enemy team captures it, and then you have to race there in order to get it. It's a very fast-paced mode, and to be quite honest, it can be a bit hectic at times, and it's both a good hectic and it's a bit bad hectic. And I'll go more into depth about that in my positives and negatives about that. But that's that game mode, and it was only available in one map. It's called Solus, I believe. It's a planet in Star Wars. It wasn't in the original trilogy movies or any of that shit, but it is in part of the Star Wars mythology and stuff like that. So it only had one map. So hopefully there will be more maps along with that mode later on. But the second mode in the multiplayer is called Walker Assault. And Walker Assault was the big mode that was featured in E3 2015, if anyone watched that. If you guys watched that or not. And basically what it is that in this mode there's teams of 20 for each side. So there's 40 players in all. And what it is that the Empire is charged with defending two of their big walkers, the AT-ATs, AT-ATs, some may call them, until they have to get to a certain point in the map. And then the rebels, the other team, are charged with not defending. Well, I guess in a way they have to defend it. But what they have to do is they have to capture these uplinks. And what these uplinks do is that they allow you to call in bombing raids on the walkers. They call in Y-Wings to bomb in on the walkers. And what it does is that once the walkers reach a certain point, the bombing raid will begin. And based off how long you've been holding these uplinks will determine the amount of Y-Wings that come in. So if you get 10 Y-Wings to come in, the walker will be exposed. It will be open to fire for you to shoot at, for you to destroy and shit like that, up to like 5 minutes or maybe 2 whole minutes or shit like that. But if you only got 1 or 2 Y-Wings, it'll only be up for like 10, 15 seconds or 30 seconds. And so that's why I said that it's also kind of like defending in a way, where you have to defend the uplinks until they, they call the Y-Wings and shit like that. And the Imperial's job, the Empire, the Stormtroopers and shit like that, their job is to basically stop you from capturing the uplinks and basically turning them off. Now, for this, in the Star Wars Battlefront Beta, there was only one map, which is the classic map, I guess you might want to call it, for, the walkers, the big AT-ATs, Hoth. The snow planet that was in Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back, Episode 5. And, basically, yeah, it's a huge freaking battle, dude. Like, I'm gonna be honest, one of my main tropes, or one of my main concerns with EA's Battlefront, when I heard, is that the biggest, amount of players available in the game would be 40. Now, in the previous Battlefronts, in the original Battlefront, there was more than 40 people on a screen in the match and shit at once. So immediately that concerned me, and it's like, it's going to be less people? That's not a good sign. Is it going to be smaller scaled? What the hell, But I have to say, after playing the Hoth map and the Walker Assault mode, I think 20 and for V20 is a good amount of people for what they did. The Battle of Hoth, it feels hectic. It feels really great. It feels like, holy shit, everything's going to crazy and shit like that. Like, I actually feel like I'm battling on Hoth. In some ways, in some other ways, I'm not feeling like I'm battling on Hoth. But I digress. The 20v20 amount of players, it feels pretty good, and it does it in a way that it doesn't feel hectic, like too hectic, and also it doesn't feel like not enough. It's just right, I believe. So I think they did that correct in the amount of people that they have. Another game mode that's included in the beta is a single player offline game mode called Survival, or I guess this is a subset of mode called Missions. And what this is that it involves a bit of story where you and a friend, either local system on your console or whatever, or online, face off against waves of enemies. And unfortunately, in this mode for the beta, the survival mode only went up to wave 4. But in this mode, basically, you just fight off against groups of enemies of the Empire and Stormtroopers and shit like that. Different enemy types and varieties. Basically, it's like a horde mode game type and shit like that. So, if you want, if you don't like multiplayer and stuff like that, there's that. But again, it only goes to wave 6 instead of, I guess, the waves of 20 that's going to be in the full game, which is kind of disappointing that it doesn't go all the way to wave 20. But I digress. That's another mode that's also included in the game.